Hello and welcome to this special International Women's Day episode of the BTS Career Pathways podcast. My name's Alex Langhorn. I head up the business support team here at BTS, and I'm joined today by G Foottit, Senior Manager and self-confessed gender champion, I believe, G. I have read from St James's Place, and we're going to be talking about the work that's being done in financial services to improve gender inclusive practices for both professionals in the sector and also for clients. I think it's important to touch on that as well today. So G, it's great to have you here with me. Thank you for agreeing to come and do this BTS podcast today. And for anyone who's listening who is hearing G's name for the first time, do check out her LinkedIn profile. G posts some brilliant, thought-provoking content on lots of different topics related to the sector and professional development. And G, you seem to wear so many different hats whenever I look at your LinkedIn profile in your professional capacity. Could you start off just by telling us a little bit about your role at St James's Place?
Yeah, absolutely. So my role is I'm part of the academy team in the recruitment marketing division. And so primarily I'm thinking about how we can attract and engage people to retrain to become financial advisors. And for me, it's typical people that haven't done the job before. We have other people that focus on the existing profession and getting people to join SJP who are already financial advisors. But my key focus really is the people that haven't ever done this before. And that's quite exciting because it could be anybody. And we don't really put any restraints on ourselves in terms of the types of audiences that we find. But obviously partnering with yourselves is a great idea because you help people get the qualifications to become financial advisors. So we're hoping to find some great talent within your community.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you here with me today. Obviously, International Women's Day is a globally recognised day, a United Nations campaign, and the goal is to encourage collaboration on issues relating to gender equality. And some people listening might be thinking, is this really still relevant in financial services in 2024? So I think it's important to look at that first of all and find out, well, why are we doing this? Why do we feel it's still important to raise awareness of this particular day and the campaign? Obviously, the campaign runs all year. It's not just a one day a year thing, it's a campaign that runs all year. And this year, the UN have launched the campaign theme, which is actually called Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress, which I think is really important because it brings a spotlight on the importance of what they term women's economic stability. And a core part of that, according to the UN, is about implementing gender responsive financing. So I think that's really important for our sector to acknowledge. And they describe that as about economic strategy that considers and analyses the diverse needs of every person to ensure a fair distribution of resources. So whilst today we're talking about professional development for women in financial services, I think it's also important to recognise and see that the UN view economic stability as a thing, as a concept, as something that's really important. And I think that does relate to professional development, which we're going to try and unpick in a little bit. So clearly, gender and finance, important indicators from the UN's point of view. What are your thoughts, G, on the UN's choice of theme for this year and how relevant it is in 2024 to financial services?
Yeah, it is relevant. So I'm sad to say that in a way, because I feel like perhaps we should have made it by now in terms of gender equality, but there is still room for improvement. If we just look at the percentage of financial advisors who are women as a starting point, as a good example, the profession, so all of those regulated advisors through the FCA, it's about 16-17%, which is a really low number. Yeah. If I share with you the SJP statistics, we're a little bit higher than that by about 3%. So we're around 19 to 20% women financial advisors within our partnership, which is made up of just over 4,800 individuals. So we feel proud of that, but how have we achieved it? Well, we had the future foresight to create a financial advisor academy over 10 years ago now. So it launched in 2012, and we've averaged 26% women graduating that program over the last 10 years. So that's quite a lot more than sort of the profession, but because our partnership is the size it is, it only makes tiny little increments each year in terms of that overall percentage. So I think now with more academies popping up here and there, hopefully they'll all have similar numbers in terms of attracting women, and we'll all slowly creep up that number within the profession.
Yeah. I was reading some reports from Morningstar yesterday, and they referred to progress being made as sluggish. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Well, possibly, but if you then think of how do we change it, I actually did a recent MBA and did this as part of my dissertation, and we did some future modelling. And you need to be really drastic if you're going to move the needle by any significant means. So it might mean for SJP having all women intakes for 2 years to really see a difference, and that's really difficult to achieve. So unless something drastic like that happens, it is going to be gradual, unfortunately. But there are lots of things that we can do to try and attract more women, because I think this is such an amazing profession for women. I was actually in an International Women's Day session on Monday with PIMFA, and there were some female graduates coming into financial advice, and they were messaging me afterwards. And I genuinely get so excited for people who choose this career when they're women. So yeah, couldn't be happier to do this today.
Yeah. And reporting on progress, I think, is really important. So really appreciate you sharing the statistics with us there for what's happening at SJP. Because I think when you report on progress and share that data, it really boosts that transparency and enhances trust, and it gives us an insight into what needs to be done, doesn't it? So I think it's so
Absolutely.
important that that's one of the indicators when it comes to gender inclusion, is reporting on the statistics
Yeah.
and analysing them. So you talked a little bit there about how the profession is a great option for women. So what has gender got to do with professional development in financial services? Is it relevant at all? Is it a positive career option for women particularly, or is gender relevant at all?
Yeah, well, if you look at the UK statistics of our population, there will be more women who are millionaires than men by 2025. So that's an
Amazing.
interesting statistic in itself. But then you look at the financial advisor population, well, under 20% of women. So there's a disparity there.
Mm.
And I think regardless of whether your clients are male or female, women do make great financial advisors because they come with a lot of the natural attributes that make a good financial advisor. So being inquisitive, emotional intelligence or empathy with the client, being able to see the world through their eyes. But importantly, if more women are having financial success, often they feel more comfortable, not all the time, of course. And often when couples seek financial advice, it is a partnership. So the two of them will sit down together with their advisor. So often when I speak to all our female advisors, I say, do you have all female clients? And they say, well, no, I start with the women, but then it's a family relationship. So that's quite an interesting thought as well. But I think often women wouldn't seek financial advice. They might feel slightly intimidated by different people. So I think a woman speaking to a woman understands the things that they've been through in life or the things that are coming in their future, maybe a little bit better than a man.
Yeah, so we're sort of talking there about the client group as well, aren't we? And how the issues around inclusion for women in financial services goes beyond just our own workforce. It's clients as well. And I think some of the gender gap there is really quite apparent. And some of the things that are in the sort of public domain in terms of statistics, things like the gender pension gap, it's absolutely huge, isn't it? I read one particular statistic suggested that a female is likely to have 51% less in retirement savings than her male counterpart, which, when you think that women are statistically likely to live longer than men, that in itself is concerning for women. And another statistic that I found really quite poignant was that 75% of women over 60 are either single, divorced, or widowed when they die, which again, if traditionally male partners are taking the role of being the financial controller, if you like, the person that makes the decisions around the money, that again is concerning, because then women, once that partner has passed, are left with a significant number of years potentially where they are independent financially. And as you said, it's a little bit of an anecdotal thing, but do women feel able to seek financial advice? Many women do, absolutely. But I think when the FCA have had a look into this, they can see that what's impacting women's access to financial advice is often low confidence and low knowledge about financial matters. So there's a financial education piece there as well, isn't there, for women?
I was just about to say those exact words. Financial education and improving people's financial literacy from a young age is so important. And it's something that SJP does very much support. So our charitable foundation, our responsible business team, provides opportunities for both employees and our partnership to be out in the community, out in schools, delivering financial education. And it doesn't have to just be in the schools, it can be in the workplace. So I know lots of women who are financial advisors with SJP. And they often talk to me about the things they're doing when I bump into them. And their faces light up because they're, oh, I'm doing these financial education webinars. I'm out there talking to groups of women. And it's women empowering women, isn't it? It's creating a safe space for them to ask questions, to not feel silly. And actually, I think men might not know the answers as much as women, but we all know that men have more confidence, or they just don't show the fact that there might not be, be understanding the question. They'll just be sitting there nodding confidently, whereas actually a woman might be less inclined to just say, oh, what on earth did you mean by that? Well, what's this acronym mean, or whatever. So I think the more that we can just create those safe spaces for people to come and have a conversation with us, the better.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting part of a financial advisor's role, isn't it? That education part. Can you tell us a little bit more about that for anybody who's listening, thinking about the profession, thinking, would this role suit me? That financial education part might be a new idea to them.
Yeah, so delivering financial education is a specialist subject, and what I'm hearing is that our schools and the teaching curriculum doesn't cover it, and therefore teachers in schools don't feel confident delivering it. So there are various different charities, and there are a couple that we work with at SJP that create these opportunities, and they create really, really tangible programs. So they're tracking the measuring success. So one of the companies that I've recently worked with is Red Start Educate, and they've got certain schools in underdeprived areas where they are measuring their success. So they've got a program that's happening each year, and they'll go back each year. And I had the privilege to go and do this in January with one of their leaders, and I was just helping to facilitate the program. And they'd seen them the year before, but only 1 year, like exactly 1 year before, not in between. And they all knew this lady's name. Hi, Helen. They were really familiar with her, really remembered the session from one whole year ago. And they were really excited about doing something again in this area. So they've got a government levy. They're tracking all this data, and I know there's lots of petitions that says we need to have financial education in our schools, but I don't know how quickly we're going to achieve it. But just spending a day with children talking about it and feeling like you've helped is so wonderful. Like, it gives you a feeling of, yeah, I've genuinely helped these people. And as I say, there's financial education modules that anybody at SJP can do, whether you're an advisor or an employee. There's an accreditation to go through, but once you've done that, there's tools that you can go out and then deliver those sessions in school. So some with external partners and moderators, and sometimes just our people, but they all have been through an accreditation before they do it.
Yeah, I think that's something that we've all got a role to play in the sector to raise that education, that financial literacy, and to reach out to groups that we haven't worked with before. So obviously we're talking about women today, and that obviously starts in schools, doesn't it? It starts from a young age, breaking down those gender stereotypes, but working with communities who perhaps haven't accessed financial education in the past is a really important thing for the sector as a whole. When we talk about inclusion, we're not just talking about women, we're talking about a much broader piece of work. Yeah, so it's really great to hear that SJP are doing some good work there, and how people can get involved in that as well.
Yeah.
And it's something that we at BTS are looking at doing as well, getting out into. We've done a couple of events in local colleges, schools, and universities is the next one to approach. And obviously we're part of the Future Financial Advisor program as well, with SJP and a few other academies and ourselves and some other exam providers. And the goal of that, whilst it's not about financial education as such, it's about raising awareness of the profession with young people in that 17 to 25 age group. I think that's part of the puzzle as well, isn't it? It's the financial education for yourself as an individual, as a consumer, but also raising awareness of the profession and the opportunities available for young people, young women, young men, who wouldn't perhaps have thought about it as a profession previously.
Absolutely. And so at SJP, we hosted a virtual work experience last year where we had over 300 students dialing in. It was 3 days. They had a project to do. It was fantastic. So we're going to repeat that this year. And we like to do that because there's no barrier to entry. There's no application process. You can just come, you can learn, you can put that you had some work experience from a FTSE 100 company on your CV, which I think is fantastic. But I got the opportunity, because I was doing my MBA, to do a survey and a questionnaire to some of these people. And they were between those ages, sort of 18 to 25, so early in their career or still studying, and asking them the questions: has anybody, suggested financial advisor as an option for you, both either at home or either at school or university? And the percentage of people that said yes was so small. They were probably family members, people that actually already knew SJP, but the ones that were fresh to this, nobody's even talking about it. So the more that we collectively can do things like the Future Financial Advisor Hub, raise awareness, then the more I think young men and women will consider it as a career option. I think at the moment it's probably the best kept secret. There's no reason why it shouldn't be up there with a legal profession or accountancy profession. And actually, it's a much more human role. So it could be even more appealing to young people to get into the role.
Yeah, I'm just going back to the statistics you mentioned at the start there about the academy, and how you're approaching now a quarter of academy trainees being female, which is already showing a trend book, isn't it, with the national trend for advisors being around 16-17%. So the academy itself is already suggesting that attracting new advisors, we are seeing more women come into the profession, which is really positive. So I'd just like to give you a bit of an opportunity to talk to us a little bit about the academy itself, and how it supports women, if you like. Why do you think it is that it's attracting more women, and what actions are being taken to make it more of an inclusive option?
To do just that. Well, I think it's always been an inclusive option, but the challenge is, as we've already discussed, it's awareness. So it's getting the message in front of the right people. I actually think financial advice pioneered flexible working years before it was even a thing.
Yeah.
So if you think about the SJP and the partnership model, we've got 2,000 employees, none of them give advice. The partnership's made up of 2,500 or more than that individual businesses. So these are business owners. They're running their business the way that they want to run it. And they're partnered with SJP to do their research, their due diligence, their systems, their marketing support, and all the things that SJP do on their behalf, which means they can spend their time in front of clients. So that, since we began, that's been our model. And all those individual business owners, or even if you're an advisor within those businesses, often you're self-employed, which means you get to choose the hours you work, where you work, who you see, which means let's talk about women. I have a daughter, she's 6, she's going to turn 7 in April. If I needed to do the school run as a financial advisor, I just don't book a meeting at that time. And I can do my administration in the evening after she's gone to bed. So it's a very flexible career. And when I speak to women who have made the move through our academy, it could be over 10 years ago now, or anybody in between up to recent moves. All the women do say it's the best career for women because there is that flexibility, but there's also no cap on what you can achieve or earn. So I think that's why it's fantastic for women. But what are we doing? So how do we do it? How do we attract more women? I think storytelling or role models are a really important part of the process. So creating really engaging content is part of my role and our team within the academy marketing function. But making sure as you said, I'm a sort of a self-confessed gender advocate or gender champion. All the things that I produce, be it a podcast or videos in the team, we make sure that we have an equal split of men and women featured in the stories. It would be really easy with our community of 80% men and 20% women to feature more men, wouldn't it? But we're like, until we've run out of all the women's stories, we're going to go 50-50 as a bare minimum. So I think that's really important. And we've got some really engaging content about people who have transitioned from one career or another. Finding audiences is really important. So audiences of younger people, super important, where we hope it will be 50-50 coming through, but we do attract second careers too. So I look after all of our recruitment partnerships. And again, I can focus them in different areas of talent. So ex-professional sports people, they could be men or women. Ex-military, they could be men or women, but usually more men. But women returners are a great source of talent. So they've had a previous career, they're having a career break for one reason or another. It could be caring for young children, it could be caring for elderly parents, it could be a job move or geography or something. It doesn't have to just be about having a family, but they've had a really great role. They've had a reason to need to take some time off. Often they do need more flexibility when they're coming back, but they don't want to have a reduction in earnings or a reduction in purpose or anything like that. So this is a great opportunity for them. So for me, nurturing those professional relationships with organizations that provide us with access to people just like that is super important. And then providing them with events and storytelling and real people that have walked the path before them. So I hear from International Women's Day last year, I did an interview and one of the ladies said, I came to one of your female events in Manchester and I walked in the room and it was all women. And she said, I didn't realize it at the time, but that removed a big barrier for me. I instantly felt at ease and I could ask the easy questions. So it's just creating that environment to make it even a tiny bit easier for somebody to come and be confident to explore the opportunity. So we try and replicate that as much as possible through events. And like I say, give people access to somebody who looks just like them, who's made the transition themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that like me concept is really powerful, isn't it? Again, in all areas of inclusion, it's really important to represent everybody as much as we
Yeah.
can. So that's a really, really powerful thing. So those shared experiences are such an important thing for us to do. And I know that we've got a couple of things coming through our content at the minute. It's being developed with your guys there in the marketing team to share some of the SJP stories. So watch out for those if you're listening at the minute. We will be sharing some of those in the next week or so to celebrate some of those. But from
Right.
your own experience, G, what's it like to break into a more senior position as a woman?
It's not easy, I'm not going to lie, but at the same time, what nobody would want any form of, step up just because you are something. You have to be um everything's equal in terms of your capability and the application process and everything else. But SJP are very, very conscious of this, and they are very inclusive in their recruitment processes, and in their selection process, whether that's for a promotion or not. So, yeah, it's over the years. I'd say things are much better now. I've been working since I was 18. I'm now 46. So I have seen huge improvements of what it was like when I first joined the profession. I haven't really left the profession. I've always worked within financial services, banking. So it's definitely improved. And I think certainly for people joining the profession now, like there are younger people in my team, you've been working with Georgia as an example. They're so brave, they're so brilliant, and they've been recognised for that, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in that time, you've mentioned yourself there. You've got a child yourself. How have you found the sector and your role has been able to adapt for that change in roles at home?
Yeah, to be honest, like I do take my career very seriously, and I have childcare wrapped around in terms of my daughter's schooling. So it's expensive. That's one thing I
It
will
is.
say, but it's a family expense. But um, but I think COVID helped everybody in that sense. And I know, like talking about COVID in a positive light is a little bit strange sometimes. But in terms of flexibility, I do believe that has helped the world move forward in terms of what the workplace looks like. So I don't think there's anybody in SJP that now works in the office 5 days a week. So it's kind of like standard might be a sort of a 3 day week in the office, with flexibility around the other day. And I just think that helps anybody and everybody, regardless if you have a young family. It just allows you to have a little bit more work-life balance. And I think that's a real positive.
It does. I think COVID has drastically helped, particularly women, but anybody with caring responsibilities at home to be able to advance in their career and also maintain a much calmer home environment in the main, I've found. I mean, I'm myself, I'm a single mum of two children, one teenager and one in primary school, with a full-time senior role. And I don't think I could have achieved that if COVID had not changed the world the way it has done in terms of flexible working. BTS is a fantastic flexible employer anyway.
Yeah.
But it means that the partners we work with in other companies are on the same page as we were anyway, because we have always been very flexible in that way. But it is good to see that has gone across the industry.
Yeah.
There are obviously some organisations moving back to that office and feeling the need to bring remote workers back in, and there's lots of advocates against that when you read through
Yeah.
LinkedIn and see some of the reasons why. And I think those reasons affect anybody, male or female, regardless of gender. They affect things like avoiding the commute, not having to get to the office after a 2-hour commute, being able to eat your lunch at home, have a decent meal rather than paying a fortune for it in a establishment overcharges
Yeah.
for a sandwich. There's all sorts of benefits, isn't there? But definitely that
Definitely.
flexibility has
Yeah.
made a difference for a lot of people, and certainly for women. And looking at when organisations are rated on their equality score, if you like, there's quite a few statistical organisations out there that rate sectors on different types of equality metrics, and flexible working always features in that scoring, related to gender, because it is so important. And I think it's important because when you look at the disparity between the genders in terms of caring, again, statistically, to use statistics a couple of times in this chat, apparently women are likely to do 3 hours a day more unpaid care work than their male counterparts. And
Yeah, I would
obviously,
agree.
yeah, it's which is it's a lot, isn't it? 3 hours a day more unpaid care work, and that can be caring for family members, caring for children. It can be the household tasks, and that does have a massive impact on a person's day. So that flexibility, if we're going to address the balance in professional field, is we need to acknowledge that is happening, and provide a way for women to do those roles, and understand the flexibility. And
definitely.
it's not a case of being more focused on home than at work, which is something I had said to me back about 20 years ago, right at the start of my career, when I first started to think about having a family. Something that was said to me in a particular employer was, "Oh, you're going to be more focused on home then from now on."
And that would never be said to a man, would it?
It's disgraceful, isn't it? And needless to
Yeah.
say, I didn't stay much longer. But yeah, that impression that's a, a drain on
Yeah.
your
It
focus.
actually motivates you more, doesn't it, in
It really
reality?
does.
It
It
really
really
does.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that flexibility, the impact of parental leave as well, is another one that's in there for measuring gender equality, and also things like women's representation in leadership roles, which we've mentioned, and how
Yeah.
important it is to share those. Gender pay gap disclosures as well, I think, is really important because we still see a really big disparity in gender pay. Um, is that something you've got any information on, Jeeve, in terms of the sector, but also at SJP?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure what I'm able to share. I do not have some knowledge about it, but I guess I can comment on things from a very high level. If you look at our employees, we've got sort of 50-50 across the board, men and women. But last year we exceeded that 30% senior leadership being women. But because there is still that disparity, when you look at the gender pay on paper, of course, the men are being paid more because they're at the more senior roles. So in simple terms, that's what the problem is. So we need a bit more time. We need maybe, I think, another generation to go through where before we see that real equality at senior leadership within the profession.
Yeah, yeah, it's not happening quickly, is it? Um,
Yeah, not
uh,
not not as quick as we would like as women.
yeah.
But there's some great people doing great things in the company, so you can't also deny that. So it
Mm,
swings and roundabouts.
yeah. So obviously, SJP are a great model for positive action and making a difference. So for anybody listening who's thinking about the profession and maybe thinking about SJP or maybe thinking about their options, what would you advise them to be expecting from an organisation if they want to join an organisation that's really taking this seriously?
Yeah, that is a great thing. I've got a slide here, which I know we can't share with on the podcast, but just got a few things that how SJP supports women, and that could be through the employed route if you're an employee like myself, or if you're in the partnership. So it's a blend of the two. So in terms of that attraction piece, we already mentioned, so raising awareness through those role models and having some engaging storytelling, engagement with female audiences like professional networks, and making sure we're getting that message to the right people. Bespoke events already mentioned, and actually understanding the value that brings, bringing down that entry level barrier for women. So at the Financial Advisor Academy is a career change program for any gender, but it does equal the playing field for men and women. There's no reason why women don't make great financial advisors. Educating students from a young age, again, getting them to consider a career in finance. And we do that through access to work experience. As I mentioned, we have that virtual work experience where it's kind of far and wide, but our team and our division under Scott, we always have about 30 students through our division. And there are other divisions within SJP that do that too, in-person work experience as well, which I think is so important. Other approaches from a sort of a corporate perspective, I'm sure you will have heard of the 30% Club.
Yep.
And SJP signed up to that, and we have about 30 people go through that program, both as mentees and mentors, giving back to people across sectors, which is fantastic. We've got Women in Banking and Finance. They have a mentoring scheme that we have access to, and we're signatories of the Diversity Project. So it's just being on the front foot and making sure we're providing people with opportunities to get mentorship, etc. And then from sort of an individual and team perspective, we've got an internal women's network. It's called Unity. And that is for both employees and partnership. And we have various different chapters, which are kind of geographical, but also there might be stage in career. So there's an academy chapter. And being part of that has been fantastic because they put on specific events. We'll ask the people in the academy, the women in the academy, what is it that you want from us? What extra can we give you? And so a recent event that we did was, this networking thing. I feel a little bit sort of nervous when I go to those events. How can you help me with that? So we've picked some people that are doing really well at it, but they're only maybe 6 months ahead of the people who are asking the questions and just sharing what they're doing. And this lady, Natasha Percy Baxter, you should look her up if you're thinking of being a financial advisor. There's been lots of podcasts interviewing her, and she's fantastic. And she's just taken the ball by the horn. She's done over 70 networking events in 12 months. So get her in front of people. talking about how she was feeling when she was them and what she's done and how that's changed her business. It's things like that, just giving people access. We also have, from an SJP employee perspective, mentor cohorts where senior leaderships will sponsor them. And then there's also access to building your business acumen. So that's sort of building up that talent pipeline of women, if you like. And then professional development, making sure people have a development plan. We've got access to a training app called House, which is internal for SJP, but that's for both the partnership and employees. There's so much information in there. So for me this year, I've got a big, scary goal. I would love to do a TED Talk. So there's so many resources for me in the House app, or our training people as well can come and train us in person too. But there's so many resources there that we have access to. So it's making sure everyone's aware of what's in there and making sure they're using it. And as I say, those regular check-ins with people and getting feedback. I think constructive feedback is very empowering. And actually, one of the things, the straplines of the academy is BBQ, which stands for Be Brave Quicker. And we have that philosophy of kind of failing fast and learning from it. So I think just encouraging people, give it your best shot. You can do this. And the worst that can happen is you learn something. Then people feel much more empowered to do things.
Some absolutely amazing examples of work in there, G. It's really good to see an organisation like SJP really taking that front foot, as you say, and leading by example. So some absolutely brilliant things in there. And I will make sure that slide's available on the BTS Careers Zone, because it's got some really insightful information in there and really starts to fill you with confidence of some of the things that are being done at such a high level, at such a top level, a senior level, to make a difference throughout the whole experience for everyone.
Yeah.
And what really strikes me about a lot of the stuff that you've put in place there is it's very accessible. It's not something that's hidden or you need to qualify to achieve it or access it. It's something that you've made accessible to so many different people in different ways through things, you say, like the House app. There's mentoring, informal mentoring, there's events. Yeah. There's lots of ways people can do it, whether they feel brave enough to put themselves out there and stick up the hand and say, I need some help, or whether they just need to go and do a bit of research themselves in perhaps a softer space. Yeah. There's so many different ways to access this sort of support. So I really like the model that you've presented there, and I think there's something for everybody just to get going. And I think one of the things, again, I've read in the literature this week that really stuck with me, and this one isn't a statistic, this one is just a concept. This is it was a report that said, just because you think you can only do a small thing, don't not do it, because that small thing will make a big difference eventually. So if all you feel you can do is make a little difference, do that.
Love that.
And I think that really comes across in what you just described there in terms of the support SJP, that some of those things that might seem like tiny little things that you could go and do to access support.
Yeah.
But that little thing is there for that person who wants that baby step, and then the braveness comes quickly, hopefully, through the program. But yeah, that if that braveness isn't there to begin with, there's support, which is really good to see. So I will make sure that slide gets shared.
Thank you. And to your comment there, I think people feel empowered when they're making progress, and it doesn't matter how small the progress is. If progress is being made and it's tangible, you feel good, and then you're more likely to do it again and keep that incremental progress taking place. So yeah.
Absolutely. So just to bring our chat to a close here, Gia, I want to summarise some of the things that have come out of it. Clearly, there's a need for better access to financial advice for women, and obviously women advisors can do that, as can the sector as a whole. So better financial advice for women is something that needs to be available and accessible, and awareness of. There needs to be an improvement in what the UN call economic stability for women, and that comes to our client group, but also our professional group. So economic stability means things like flexible working. It means things like access to childcare. It means things like recognising caring responsibilities. So that is a really important piece as well. I think also we've talked about how important it is to work with stakeholders, so to ask women in our firms, in our organisations, what they need to help them succeed. There's definitely a need for employers and organisations to report on how they're doing with these things, as you've been quite happy to share today from an SJP point of view, so that we can see the impact that we're having and the work that still needs to be done. So I think International Women's Day, absolutely, from everything you've been saying about what's been happening at SJP, is very, very relevant in financial services in 2024, and really important that we keep having conversations like this to celebrate the successes, put a spotlight on the things that still need some work, but also just to give people permission to talk about it as well. I think that's, for me, why this was important to do today.
Absolutely. Thank
So
you so much for having me. And from an SJP perspective, we've put on some events specifically for International Women's Day internally as well. And they've been focusing on career progression, but also health and the other things that you've mentioned. But there's a video coming out today that I know one of my colleagues has been putting together that's interviewing our female partners. So have a look out for that because it's going to be fantastic.
that's fantastic. And also follow G on LinkedIn. G, you also run a podcast called The Switch, which is absolutely fantastic. So anyone's not been subscribing to that, get over there and subscribe to G's podcast. And do get in touch with us here at BTS if you'd like to chat about anything we've discussed in the session. We also love to hear from anybody who is doing things to make a difference in the profession. So if you are doing work in this area and want to talk about it, please share that with us. Thank you again, G, and thanks to everybody for listening.